In October 1976, the heroes of England's famous World Cup victory reunited for a friendly in Telford.
Hairstyles have altered, of course, and some of the players have become a bit broader around the waist. But as Bobby Moore led the old team out, things seem to have changed very little.
A sellout crowd packed into the Bucks Head Stadium to see these icons of the game back together again and to remember the greatest moment in English football.
This goal from Geoff Hurst brought back memories of his third at Wembley 10 years ago.
Bobby Moore, Geoff Hurst, the Charlton brothers, the heroes of '66 together again. It's an unashamedly nostalgic image, but it was one horribly out of touch with reality.
All we're going for is a good game of football, a good punch up and a good piss up.
Standing by. And we saw clearly the thuggery of a group of hooligans who could never have claimed to have come along simply to enjoy the football.
If some dirty northern punt spits over me, I'll put a fucking pint glass in his head.
Football, the preserve of fathers and sons for generations, was in crisis. Many young fans were carried away by a culture of casual violence.
And then they stood in the street exposing themselves, and when I say exposing themselves, I mean exposing themselves.
And they've got to put them in jail. They've got to. Either that or they've got to publicly birch.
Railway stations, high streets, motorway services. Come Saturday afternoons, these were the realms of football's boot boys.
Every football club had its gangs, and at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, cities across the land braced themselves for the inevitable.
Wolves attack, and off march to Richards, and it's a
goal. This is Molineux, the home of my team, Wolverhampton Wanderers, pride of the Midlands.
Wolves stepping up the pressure.
Today, the atmosphere's never been more family-friendly. But in August 1975, Wolves hosted the most feared club in the country.
Manchester United, Manchester United, we're the greatest team in the world.
Football violence was so common that the Daily Mirror even started running a regular column, The League of Violence. And in 1975, Manchester United were well clear at the top.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Police arrangements for the match today.
United scored 2 late match-winning goals, and then their most notorious fans, the Stretford Enders, went on the rampage.
As the Stretford Enders ran amok, 14 people were stabbed, hundreds of bottles were thrown, and dozens of businesses were looted. They even ransacked the Wolves club shop. The police finally managed to corner them here, outside the Molineux Hotel, using dogs and horses to pen them in.
That afternoon, there were mass arrests from York to Ipswich, from Southend to Stoke. Football violence had become a brutal nationwide epidemic.
This is a photograph showing some of the horrific weapons the police confiscated from suspected hooligans. There's an axe, a meat cleaver, knives, scissors, daggers, darts. It's a truly extraordinary assortment of hardware. Some of the weapons, though, were a little bit more imaginative. The police even confiscated a hairbrush.
Many older fans were horrified, and nobody captured their disgust better than the Manchester United legend Sir Matt Busby.
We don't want them. I wish we could find them and throw them in the river or something.
What made football hooliganism so deeply disturbing was that it was such a public and unashamed exhibition of raw tribal aggression. Britain was supposed to be the country of the stiff upper lip, a land where youngsters obeyed the law, the streets were safe, and a spirit of quiet moderation ruled our daily lives. But now a new generation, apparently steeped in bloodshed, appeared to be defying everything that Britain stood for. But why was the violence escalating now?
In 1977, the government commissioned a survey into Britain's hobbies. You've got everything here, from fishing and football to darts and DIY. And what all these dry facts and figures show is that for the ordinary British bloke, Saturday afternoons no longer revolved around the beautiful game.
For decades, generations of men, young and old, had watched their local teams side by side. But in the mid-70s, as men developed new interests and wider responsibilities, that tradition broke down.
For weekends, older men were more likely to be found wandering around garden centres or DIY stores than they were standing on the windswept terraces. And without the role models in the stands, without the disapproving looks of dads and granddads to keep the troublemakers in line, the dynamic of the football crowd shifted.
As living standards had risen and older men invested their time and money in more domestic pursuits, football attendances had begun to slide.
It wasn't just the fact that people were staying away from football because of hooliganism. It was the fact that people were staying away from football that allowed hooliganism to thrive. And once established, the momentum towards greater violence and greater bloodshed became self-reinforcing.
This wasn't just a story about football. This seemed to capture so much of what was wrong with Britain. The scenes of appalling violence suggested that the nation was tearing itself apart, and that traditional moral values, respected for generations, had simply collapsed.
Have you any ideas about what you want to be?
Footballer.
A footballer?
When I was young and just a boy.
And yet, despite the crisis in the stands and the fighting in the streets, most young boys shared the same dream.
Arsenal, will it be Spurs? Is what she says to me.
My dear, you're going to be a footballer. You'll earn far more than I will.
The stars of the day were paid more than ever before, and their lifestyles were increasingly touched with glamour and celebrity.